that has made a tremendous impact on people in the West. I mean, she's like a rock star. I went to hear her once shortly after 9/11, and I mean, there must have been at least 3,000 people at Riverside Church lining up to hear what she had to say. So, writers and artists and musicians who can cross those borders are coming from the East and enriching, and they've done it even before it became fashionable to say so. I mean, look at the Beatles back in the 60s. I mean, people like George Harrison and Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr were heavily influenced by, music of India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, etc. And this has always gone on. So now we have perhaps a clearer sense of that trajectory. But it's happening, and I don't think it's a one-way traffic. I think that what is unfortunate is because the Western institutions are so much more powerful that they tend to dominate the scene, and so people think that really, and the West sort of swallows up all these other sort of ideas and movements and turns them into something that then they can claim for their own. But I think in recent decades, people and scholars have called attention to that, that kind of cannibalization, and are trying to reverse the process.
I am just wanting to ask you two quick questions, jumping ahead somewhat thematically. One, when we looked at the Bollywood cinema, particularly their music and their songs and their dances, where they now have a lot of European junior artists joining their group dances and songs. What is the message behind this metaphor, the new imagery of the Indian dance, where you have Salman Khan dancing with 13, junior artists from Europe?
Well, I mean, I think that I don't know that there is a message. I think Bollywood is a big commercial industry, and I think they sort of want to promote whatever is going to sell the most products and bring the largest number of audiences into the theaters. And I think that given the fact that people all over the world now have access to the material, musical or otherwise, of the West, those who live in India in this particular case, that they want to absorb that. I think that's fantastic. I mean, why should the West only be the site where other cultures and other traditions are absorbed and turned into musical extravaganzas and so on? So I think they're reversing the flow.
Okay, very interesting. There's room for more discussion. But let me ask you a very last question. And that is not a Sufi poet, but a Sufi influenced poet. In this case, I mean Faiz Ahmad Faiz, in whom we see convergence of three traditions: the Romantic tradition, the Sufi tradition, and the revolutionary tradition. What happened to that revolutionary tradition in contemporary music? Do you see that revolutionary spirit prevailing and pervading through the contemporary modern South Asian music, or you think it has been appropriated under the imperialist project?
Well, the thing is that, the imperialist, which is also the capitalist model, of course, survives because, it sort of absorbs even those movements or co-ops that happen to be counter and radical. So that is the nature of the beast. That doesn't mean that one has to stop articulating those progressive revolutionary visions. I think so. I think that there are many, not everybody, not all artists do that, but I think that there have been and there continue to be groups, and one of the examples I gave you was that of Junoon, where I think that here was a group that came out that was very revolutionary, that stood up and said, and they were banned from Pakistan for a while. They went and got the prize from India because they critiqued the establishment and the way it was going, in Pakistan. And they have used Sufi poetry and Sufi music in the context of their own sort of rock trajectory to get across a message of brotherly love and peace, and positing really a revolutionary counter ideology to the ruling ideologies of the day, both in the West as well as in the East, in this case specifically in Pakistan.
I'm practically out of time. We will leave it at that, and I hope Professor Saab will return to this table again so we can continue our discussion. Among other things, in that session, I'd like to ask him the difference between Sufi poetry, Sufi-inspired poetry, and vulgarization and commercialization of Sufism. Thank you and goodbye.